On that note, welcome to News for the Soul, James Gilliland.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. I'm really excited about letting people know about what I've had like 4 different people in 1 week telling me, you've got to check this guy's website out, and you've got to get down to this ranch. And I thought, oh, okay. So I went and I checked out your site, and I looked at some of the video clips that are on there and heard a couple of the sound clips, and thought, wow, you're not just talking about this stuff. I mean, you claim to be doing this on an ongoing basis weekly. Let's tell them what you're doing, first of all.
Well, it's I have several hats that I wear right now, it seems. But I started off on a very spiritual journey after a near-death experience.
Whoa!
And that's what blew me wide open. And on the spiritual journey I was on, about halfway through it seems like, I started bumping into these extremely advanced, very spiritually and technologically advanced ETs.
Well, what caused the near-death experience, James?
It was a drowning.
Is it typical? Give us a thumbnail viewpoint.
Well, I went through the tunnel that everybody talks about. It was a drowning, and at the end of it, I ended up in just a golden white light, a plane of, I just called it a plane of bliss, where there was a greater consciousness surrounding me, and I was part of it. I couldn't explain it. I was unique, yet one with this greater consciousness, and then I had a conversation with it while I was there.
How long ago was this?
About 24 years ago.
And what kind of conversation did you have?
Well, the first thing I asked was, how can I stay? Because
I can relate to that.
Yeah, I know you can. You've had real similar experiences. But it was just the most loving, joyous, blissful, secure feeling you can imagine. There's no words that can describe that experience, and I just wanted to stay. And, I just said, how can I stay? And the voice came back to me, and it said, I never told one of my children when to come or go. That's free will. And the next thing I asked, because I had a little bit of a Catholic upbringing, I said, how can I earn the right to stay? And the voice came back to me again and said, you cannot earn what is given freely and unconditionally. And so I had to kind of unload a lot of the programs that I was giving concerning the nature of the source.
So you chose to come back?
Pretty much. I was, the thing I asked, I just asked, how can I serve? I wanted to give something back after experiencing that. And I kept asking, how can I serve? And I kept waiting for some big, long, lengthy thing for them to do, to go, knock on this guy's door, help this person, that person, or whatever. And there was never an answer. It just kept waiting and waiting for an answer. And then finally the voice came back to me and said, what do you want to do? What brings you joy? And I said, I want to come back and teach people the true nature of Source and kind of eliminate all the nonsense that's being taught. And the last words I heard was as you wish, and then I was back in my body again, and they're pulling me out of the water. Wow.
So how did we get from drowning and a near-death experience to contacting or being in connection with ETs?
Well, what happened was I was on a very intense spiritual journey. I wanted to go back and keep that connection while here in the physical, and I studied quite a few years, about 10 years with yogis. I studied with some Tibetan masters, studied all kinds of, I studied with the teachings of the Inner Christ movement, several other movements, trying to gain the tools and techniques and understand what happened to me. Because in the fundamental teachings, they're very polarized. What they didn't understand was the devil or dark, and they didn't really understand that we live in a multidimensional world, a vibrational continuum. They didn't understand that part of it. It was just very, very polarized in their understanding, so I had to go outside the basics and, outside the box and start learning basically from some other masters and teachers to understand what happened.
So how did that get you to extraterrestrials?
Well, what I found out when I met some of the lamas and some of the yogis, I found out that that's actually part of their reality, and the Native American elders that I studied with also, it was part of their reality too. They called them the Star Nations. There's over 400,000 different forms, humanoid forms in the universe according to the ancient Vedic teachings. So they even describe the ships. Some of the ships are physical, some are non-physical, they're more energy, and some are light ships. And they said some of these things we're seeing are just pure consciousness. So it started tying this all together when I was looking at it, and I was doing an all-day meditation one day, and I started receiving a very strong telepathic communication with some beings that I thought were coming from a very, very high level. They felt what I would call like Christed energy, very high energy. And they were telling me a lot of things that you would think would be coming from some other high master about humanity and the earth and things that need to change and ways of doing things differently. And
give us an example of that, James.
Well, it's the basics, brother, sisterly love, stop destroying your environment, all the simple basics that, the one field, that everybody is within the one field of consciousness. Everybody came from the same source, and in that we're all family, and we need to start acting accordingly. And we also need to honor the sacred circle of life, which is the Native American teachings. And it was tying it all in together. And the more I listened to them, I was trying to discern what level they were coming from. And when they told me they were coming from a ship, I about fell out of my chair, and I said, "This is nuts. I've lost it. My imagination has kicked in here. I'm going to go out and work in the garden." So I went out and started digging some trees and things like that to get grounded again. And I put it off. I was on my way out the door, and I didn't even make it to the door, and my two sisters came up banging on the door, asked me if I saw it, and I said, "See what?" And they said, "The ship." And there was a disc hovering right over the sanctuary here.
Okay, so
So I kind of, then I had to own it. I said, well, there does seem to be some very, very spiritually advanced beings that are connected to these ships and that have our highest and best interest in order. And I started putting it all together from there on, and that was the beginning of it.
How are your sisters handling all of this?
Oh, they love it. My whole family's into it. They see the ships come in all the time, and the kids are especially, they get real excited about it. And
how often do you see ships come in?
It's almost boring now. There's so many ships coming in. I always tell them when they land, come get me. But
are they different kinds, or is it the same basic model or style?
They're all different. We've seen some physical craft. Most of them are brilliant lights, and they vary. We've had some giant triangle ships come over that have actually made left-hand turns, and they're just immense ships. And we actually have them on film. We've filmed 3 of them. And we've had very large disc-type ships. What's strange is they come in almost every color. We've had them come brilliant green colors. We've had even pink colors. But most of them are brilliant white light. Some are blue. They just seem to be coming in all colors and all different shapes. One of the most interesting ones we saw 3 giant, look like tetrahedron ships. They're about 3 times the size of a jetliner, and there's 3 of them. And actually, the reason we could say that is because they were trailing a jetliner. They were behind the jetliner, and we could see them and the jetliner at the same time. And we realized these ships are immense. These are very big ships.
Okay, we're going to get into this in a little more detail, if you can imagine that, in about 2 minutes. We've got to take a quick break. This is News for the Soul, covering ET phenomenon, the News for the Soul way, back in 1 minute. Hi, everybody. This is Nicole at News for the Soul. Markley and I are talking to James Gilliland of ECETI, that's ECETI, which is Enlightened Contact with Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Boy, that's a mouthful. And you have been in contact, you say, with alien beings of some sort, many of them. For how long now, James?